Well. Here we are. Religious meta-narratives. Greg, today I wonder if this can be considered as a meta-narrative, but I think it is, because I see it happening in religious circles. I think we should talk about the issue of conflict. It's one of those things that you find in religion where it's okay. I'm gonna take a page from your book. Here's a pretty bad illustration. It's a bad illustration. They say in every family there is that one individual, call him the black sheep. Why not white? Anyway, the black sheep of the family, and it said that if you think about your family and you can't picture who that is, it's probably you.
You're probably right.
and there's this kind of black sheep that we need to talk about in religious circles, and I think it is conflict. It's like something that is there but not there, but it is there. I guarantee you ask a handful of Christians, for example, should we go to war? You will get 5 different answers.
Yes. Yep.
At what point in war is it okay for a Christian to shoot the enemy? You'll get it is there. It is part of the fabric of, and we all have these meta narratives we hold on to about what is war. When can we? Is there such a thing as a just war? Is there such a thing as a just conflict? Can you be justified? I've heard people throw this term, and I'm sure you've heard it also: righteous anger or righteous indignation.
Oh yeah.
Like as if there is a time when conflict is good. Greg, can conflict be ever good in your view? Can we have good conflict? Is that even possible?
Well, I think in some respects a conflict has some value, and here's it's just between you and I.
Yeah.
You take one position, I take another, and we both hold them very dearly. And again, in our case here, we debate them out, we discuss them, and we find a mutual ground that you can accept, and of course I will accept. So what I'm saying is that if we use conflict in that context, then I think it actually sharpens a person's understanding of their own position, their own belief system. In that respect, I think it is okay to have a difference or a conflict just to help us move the idea, to move the I want to say idea, the thing forward.
Yeah.
But when it comes to should we have conflict in the home, or we should have conflict in the community, where I am right and you're wrong, then that becomes a different story. Where what we're talking about is a dialogue, it's a difference of opinion, it's a difference of understanding. We debate it out and we come to a mutual agreeable or a better understanding. In my case, I oftentimes come away with a much more robust appreciation for the other side, or even my own positions. You know what? It withstood that rigors of a conversation.
Yeah, but I guess we can't call that conflict, can we? I mean,
you're right.
That's a that's a healthy conversation, I think.
Yes.
Maybe no, I read a fellow once who made a very good argument. I think, and that's a book that I would recommend to our viewers. Mr. Director, could you pull up the book, The Peacemaker?
Oh.
The Peacemaker. I think it's written by a fellow named Ken Sandy. Ken Sandy, the Peacemaker. There we go. It is a fascinating. Ken has an interesting argument in that book. He says that conflict is an opportunity. An opportunity. And he argues that it is an opportunity to glorify God. And I remember reading that and thinking, wait a second. Are you saying that each and every time we find ourselves in a conflict, we have been presented with an opportunity to glorify God? That's a bit hard to swallow, especially
if my side wins.
God is glorified if my side wins.
That's right. Yeah.
And you and I spoke about this with all these religious stories that people use as building blocks for their identity.
Yep.
And people find themselves in conflict about these stories. I mean, in our conversation, you could hear there's a certain, it's tense.
Yeah.
How do I accept this? Is it legitimate? And people find themselves in conflict on these stories. But you know me and numbers.
Yeah.
Here's something that will shock your socks off.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. The cameras can't tell that you're not wearing socks. Okay. The United States has been at war for about 225 of the 243 years since its inception in 1776.
About 90% of the time.
So about 90% of the time, the country that has been gallivanting and saying, peace on earth, peace. We want to control, we don't want more war. We're going to have, all these great institutions that are going to make sure war doesn't happen again. Because I think we all have this collective trauma from World War II.
Yeah.
I mean, World War II was nasty.
And the United Nations was spawned out of that.
United Nations was spawned out of that. And here we are, the nation that is pretty much leading this has been at war for 225 of the 243 years, and counting, by the way, counting.
And counting.
And you have to ask yourself, do we get to a place where we talk the talk but don't walk the walk? What does it mean? There's a text here, Greg, that I think we should wrestle with. Matthew. I want to read this. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Mr. Director, you put that on the screen. It says, blessed. In other translations, it will say happy. Happy are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God. Peacemakers, not peace announcers, peace promoters, peace lovers, but peacemakers. Because I think it's one thing, in my view, Greg, to love peace, and it's quite another to actually be a peacemaker. I think the United States love peace, but they're doing a bad job of being peacemakers. Am I being too harsh?
I think your observation is correct. that we all will sign on to. Yes, we love peace. We appreciate peace, and it's an very American thing to say. Yeah, it's all for peace. Bring the boys home.
Yeah.
And we are very happy when everybody arrives. The reality is that it doesn't last very long. There's always an excuse to go back somewhere. But I am intrigued by this text that it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." It's a promise in that. So I'm wondering, Mr. Director, if I could have you pull up another text. And again, I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on it. Again, in the book of Matthew, chapter 10, verse 34.
Okay.
And again, these are the words of Christ. So I'm wondering, Tom, if you could share that with us.
Yeah. Do not, oh my goodness. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household.
Wow.
Greg, what do you do with that text?
It seems to me it's being fulfilled.
How, Greg? I mean, it's being fulfilled, yeah, but this is the same fellow who says, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Exactly. So what it's a dichotomy here. We'll be having a commission and encouragement to be peacemakers.
Yeah.
And then a couple of chapters later, be prepared for conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the real question in my mind, if you're going to be a peacemaker, is that going to last very long? It's a kind of a futile job, because it sounds like to me that war is going to happen. Peace is not going to last very long. So why bother?
Why bother? It also seems to me, though, that in the spirit of context and nuance, I do think that in the text that you have brought up here, this is him speaking in the context of the aggression that is happening against his message.
Yes.
Okay, so against his message, and whoever embraces his message, I mean, it's going to cause a bit of agitation. I think that's what he's saying. The message is going to bring agitation, but it is not intentionally out there to agitate.
Yeah, and
I'm wrestling with it. I'm wrestling with it here.
Yeah. But you have actually framed that. I believe your point is a powerful one. Is that the message of peace is not always readily accepted.
Yeah.
His message in particular is going to be hit with opposition, etc. on it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, and I think it's important to look at that, because it doesn't negate the fact that the earlier text that we saw in chapter 5, verse 9 that you brought forward is about the challenge that we should have. We should be proactively doing this.
Yeah.
This is a reaction what is taking place on 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're seeing the reaction, but the commission is to do this.
Yeah. The commission is to be actively peacemakers.
Yes.
And there will be a reaction. Okay. And I think that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But here's another question for you, Greg. I think we should discuss. Who's been addressed here? Whose responsibility is it to be a peacemaker? Who is in a better position in the world we live in? Is it the state, the church, or the individual?
So,
Okay, let's break it. Let's break it down. Let's break it down.
Let's break it down.
Okay, let's say
That's
the
huge.
church. No, the state. Let's start
Okay.
with the state.
Okay.
Is the state a good peacemaker? In your view?
The state has the capacity to be an amazing peacemaker. It has, and what I'm coming to, and the reason why I say that, it has influence in the world, both politically and militarily. So it has those two components that I, as an individual, do not have. And thirdly, it has resources to support a position that they take on it. So there's three primary reasons why the state has a capacity, much greater capacity than I as an individual.
Are you suggesting, Greg, that because you said military and my eyes were I almost popped out. Do you think peacemaking by deterrence is actually something that that works, to say, hey, stop fighting or we will nuke you? We have the weapons. Look at them. They bring the cameras and show all our weapons. Listen to us or else we'll bomb you. Is that peacemaking? Is that good peacemaking, Greg?
Is there such a thing as bad peacemaking?
Oh, okay, fair, yeah.
My point is if you have two warring factions and you roll into town with your nuclear bomb and say, boys, stop this, because you don't want me to light the fuse.
Yeah.
They back off and people are prepared to stand down. Does that mean standing down? Do you have peace? I know you're going to ask me that question.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying is that you have, from a militarily point of view, you have stopped the bullets from flying.
I struggle with that one. Because Greg, I think the state is one of the worst peacemakers out there.
I'm not saying that they do a good job, but they have the capacity to do an amazing job. And that's what
I don't think they do.
Oh, okay. So do you think me as a private individual with limited resources, a limited political influence, and you can go down the list of my limitations, I'm going to go over there and raise the flag and say, boys, I've come to town. We're going to have peace.
Fighting.
Yeah, stop fighting. And they're going to say, yeah, buddy, just stay at Starbucks because this is going to get really bad in the next couple of days.
Fair argument. I think there are other ways that the individual can actually bring about peace, better ways than the state can. The state, to me, is this combination of different people with different political interests, and it is a conglomerate of power and the messiness of life sometimes, and hence why it's always difficult in the political arena to get everyone on board, because people are different. And the state seems to always cater for what the state feels like it is best for the majority, not everyone, just the majority. So if the decision makers now, and hey, call me a conspiracy theorist, all right? I think as my my wife usually says, everybody has a conspiracy. And if you don't have one, that's a conspiracy. I think it's hard for the state. The state has too many things working in it for it to value peacemaking. And I say, there we go. Exhibit A, Ukraine. Exhibit B, Israel, Palestine, Russia. And the list is endless. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. And I think most people will struggle to give me at least 2 examples where the state stepped in and the bullets did not fly.
Okay, I'll give you that one. But the other argument that comes into this is that why waste all your time trying to make peace? It sounds like a dumb comment, but here's my point.
Yeah.
I this is speaking of my great age. I remember my relatives talking about the Second World War, and Germany was the bad country involved on it, and we had some heritage coming out of the Germany, etc. on it. So it was a very sensitive discussion, and okay, this is a bad thing, and ultimately, as a young child, I remember the Vietnam War. I said, oh yeah, and I had heard about all this drama and destruction from the Second World War. Then I started to see on television and stuff what was coming out of Vietnam, and it was like deja vu. This is going to go really, really bad, and it went on year after year.
Yeah.
But much to my surprise and shock and somewhat dismay is that now Germany is a very favored country in Europe. People love the Germans. In North Vietnam and Saigon and Vietnam in general, after a few years when the trade embargoes came off, now we get most of our furniture made over in Vietnam, and we love the people. We're bringing them over, and they're integrating, and they are a favored nation status, I believe, when it comes to immigration and commerce. So now all of a sudden, the war that was spent, huge amount of human life and resources was lost on, has resolved itself, and we're at peace with them. We're at peace with Germany. We're at peace with Vietnam. So my point is that let the wars fizzle out, and we'll go back to peace.
Yeah, well, the fizzling out, is not active peacemaking, is it?
Exactly. So my point is that let it fizzle out on its own.
No, Greg. Absolutely not. Because in the fizzling out, there is a huge human cost to it.
I agree.
And the state has, when the state is at the center of it, I think if you fail to be an active peacemaker, you should not want to be celebrated as someone when it has fizzled out, as someone who is, opening the doors and the gates and all of that. Your failure to stop the conflict in the beginning, I feel like, and I know I'm being too harsh, it discredits you from being the one who gets to celebrate the reunification afterwards. Like, no. You failed us at point A. Don't party with us at point B. We're kicking you out of the party. I know I'm being rough on that one, but I am not convinced the state is the best peacemaker.
So we talked about narratives here, and we have been talking narratives. Your narrative drives you to make that statement.
That is true.
So change your narrative and let it fizzle out.
I wish I had a better narrative to adopt, but I don't. I am yet to see a state that is active in making peace. In fact, actually, Mr. Director, I think there's a country, I think in South America, that actually does not have a standing army. They disbanded. Standing
Argentina?
army. Is it Argentina?
No.
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 They're in war. Yeah. Can you look it up and let us know?
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica has no standing army, according to Mr. Director. I think if there's a statement towards being a peacemaker, there is one. We as a country will not have a standing army. How many states can do that?
I must say, Costa Rica is an impressive country. I was there once, and now seeing that, they're even more impressive.
Yeah.
That is, and I give them high marks for pulling that off. They still have police, and they still have all these other peacemakers in their own country.
Yeah.
But for a standing army, that's pretty impressive. Very impressive.
I mean, I've often argued that the best way to kind of really scale down conflicts is to make I'm gonna get in trouble for this one. But how about you make the selling of ammunition illegal? Unless you're shooting bears, maybe, but you can't sell. Imagine if we stopped all the bullets from being sold in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, what would happen?
Yeah, when you're saying bullets, you're actually referring to more than just bullets.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that the obvious is pointed out.
Yeah.
That actually has a strong argument. And the flip side is that in the United States, there's a number of states and counties in particular where the crime is actually fairly low because everybody packs a gun.
Deterrence, again?
Yes. So the argument is if I know you have a gun and you know I have a gun, we're going to
be careful.
We're going to be very careful. But if I know you don't have a gun, then I can be the bully.
There's something in me without much articulation, I guess, that just wants to deny that statement. It just sounds too simple. If I have a gun and you have a gun, then we won't shoot each other.
I'm talking about at a local level. I'm not talking about extrapolating that to countries.
Okay.
So just to make that out. Yeah. Because but historically that has not worked for countries.
Okay.
And historically the rule of thumb is the only way to prevent you as a country from being a problem to the rest of the world is I get bigger guns.
Yeah.
And it moves up the scale, and then you get a bigger gun, and ultimately, we have enough nuclear weapons in the world today to destroy it several times over. And, how many times do you have to kill the person? So it works, but there are
limitations.
Yes.
There are limitations. So in your example, if my neighbor annoys me and I know that he has a gun and I have a gun, maybe that will stop me from going over to his house and giving him a piece of my mind. And then there's peace.
No. That doesn't mean that what I'm saying is that there's a difference between violence and peace.
Okay.
And I think that is the critical thing is that the text that we looked at here is blessed be the peacemakers.
Yeah.
It didn't say blessed be those that eliminate violence. And so I think we need to understand, even though you have a gun and I have a gun, it doesn't mean that we're at peace. It means
No.
that there's no, the violence has possibly gone down.
Yeah, so maybe let's talk about that, Greg. What entails peacemaking? If peacemaking was a loaf of bread, what are the ingredients?
What the primary ingredient is, somebody has to capitulate.
Does it?
Typically, that's the case. Is that, hey, I'm right and you're wrong, and with much shouting and much flexing of my authority, either you will stop the engagement, or you will say, okay, to prevent this craziness from going any further, I'll say you're right if that makes you happy, even though I may think you're wrong.
See, I think that approach is not peacemaking, but peace faking.
I love that.
That's peace faking.
Faking,
Yeah,
yes.
because it avoids it. It's that kind of response that says, "Oh, I don't want to get my hands dirty in this." I can just, I'll just say, "Okay, yeah," and just, I think it's peace faking because you walk away from that incident, and you're still thinking, "Oh my goodness, what a piece of work that fellow is."
Said well. So you're really good at calling up definitions. Why don't we look at, see what Google says? What do they think a peacemaker is, or peace? Mr. Director.
Mr. Director, could you consult Professor Google what they define a peacemaker as? A peacemaker is a person who helps others solve a conflict and reach a peaceful solution.
I love that word, solve.
Yeah, well, but I think I would argue with Professor Google here. I think Professor Google is thinking of what's the English word for the person you bring? Oh, a mediator.
A mediator, yeah.
Mediator. That sounds like a mediator. It says, of course, Gandhi was a famous peacemaker, but even the volunteer on playground patrol can act as a peacemaker. I think Google is off to lunch today. I think because that sounds like a mediator. I mean, are mediators peacemakers? Yeah, maybe. But an active peacemaker, I think an ideal situation where peace has been found, the involved parties walk away with an understanding of themselves and the role they've played in the conflict, and also an even deeper understanding of the person on the other side of the conflict. Saying, to be able to walk away saying, I get you. We were fighting about this, but I get you. Like, I deeply, honestly get where you are. But if there's a mediator who says, like in a playground situation, Johnny, stop throwing the rocks. And Johnny says, yes. And Stacy, stop calling Johnny names. And Stacy says, yes. And then they walk away. That's not peace. There's no peace there. There's a
absence of violence.
There's the absence of violence, but there's no peace. Peace is when little Johnny understands why Stacy had to call him names, and Stacy understands why little Johnny was throwing rocks at her. I mean, hey, bad example here, but you get my point.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of peace faking. And I think there's a lot of peace breaking in the name of peacemaking, and so little peacemaking. Because peacemaking seems to entail a lot. Peacemaking seems to involve a lot of vulnerability, and hence why I say, no way, state cannot do that. It just absolutely can't do that. A state that comes out to say, we would like to apologize because we were wrong in A, B, C, D, and E, and it has nothing to do with affecting what the next vote is going to look like and so on. Absolutely not.
So, now you bring that example up. In Canada and in North America,
Yeah.
the First Nations took a real beating, their young people going through educational systems.
Yeah.
And as you pointed out in one of your comments earlier here, that a head of, I want to say one of the head of the Catholic Church, which was, there was other churches involved with this, but primarily the Catholic Church was involved. They eventually, after much time, came out and made an apology.
Yeah.
So it seemed like that apology was initiated from duress. So is that an example where there really isn't a peacemaker? I'm going to use your example of the playground.
Mm-hmm.
Social media acted like the negotiator,
Yeah, the mediator.
the mediator.
Yeah.
And because of the press, etc., they came on front of the camera and says, oh, I've got my arm twisted enough. I'm going to say sorry.
Yeah.
Is that what you're implying here?
I think I would say, and disclaimer,
Yeah.
now that you're saying that, I think it might have been a good idea to actually bring out the official apology and actually see how much that was said in that apology is actually peacemaking language. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know. I saw the event. I didn't pay attention to the statement in depth. But it is possible for someone to be put under so much pressure and then they come out with something that is disguised as peacemaking when the language is actually not peacemaking. A lot of people will be able to relate to this. You are in a conflict with your significant other. And the conflict gets heated. I mean, the volume goes up, the words get more flowery, and the language gets loose and shorter, and oh my. And then you feel bad afterwards, and then you say to your significant other, if I offended you, I am sorry.
Yeah.
That is peace faking. Because you're not taking any responsibility. You're not saying, it's one thing to say, if I offended you, I'm sorry. It's quite another to say, I offended you. The words that came out of my mouth when I said A, B, C, D, and E, and I've been thinking about them, and those words are inappropriate and they are inaccurate about the person you are. I apologize. And from this day onwards, I am going to do A, B, C, D to correct that. And that's taking responsibility.
Yes.
But, well, if I said something that hurt you, sorry. Oh, give me a break. So I'm saying it's possible. It's possible to be put under so much pressure. I mean, you see politicians every time. And they come out on TV and say, well, I would like to apologize for. Yeah. And sometimes people do practice peace faking because they've been caught.
Yes.
No. I think peacemaking is more demanding. It is more soul searching. it exposes us to us.
So, in your example, and I think it's one that many people can resonate with.
Yeah.
You have one person in there of the two that says, you know what, I could have done this differently. This is a person of value. I need to, cogitate on this. And you know what? I did this poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And they initiate the process.
Yeah.
But if you have two individuals that neither one of them will initiate the process, you're at a stalemate.
You are.
So now the issue is that you can take that from two individuals. You can scale that up. And what we've been reading here is that there is a third person called a peacemaker.
How, Greg?
Well, when we looked at Matthew 5:19, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Yeah.
So what I'm coming to is that it wasn't blessed are the one person that felt remorse.
Mm-hmm.
And yay for them.
Yeah.
It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers."
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a third person, I think. I think
It's true. It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
But it can be, yeah. And in that case, I think it's right to say that's a mediator who's then coming into the picture to help the process of peacemaking.
Okay.
It is easy for two people in a conflict to sit and say, okay, this is what I did wrong in this, and the other person says, no, that's not what you did wrong. This is what you, and then we cannot come to a place where we have an understanding of the conflict to begin with. Sure, bring in a mediator in that case.
Okay. So that seems like a pretty workable solution on an interpersonal level.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up to the Gaza-Israel issue.
Yeah.
I want to go back there because a minute ago you challenged me about this idea that nations are probably not the best.
Yeah, states are not.
I'm still not convinced of that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying that let's take the position that is an individual activity that has to take place. You have the Arab situation that has a huge history. It goes back decades or more.
Yeah.
You got the Israeli issue in history that go back decades.
So who's the best peacemaker in that situation?
How do you get everybody together and say, you know what, boys and girls, you have a common ancestor by the name of Abraham. There's no need for this here. And a little old me, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to do this. I'm going to go get everybody together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Greg, I think lasting peace or peacemaking at its very best is not legislated into existence. When you legislate something into existence, what will happen is that the individuals who are there will say, okay, it's law, but there's no peace. And in that particular situation, I think it is not the state, it is not the church, the religious systems. I think it's the individuals. It's the people, it's the person. And this thing, it's like a wildfire. I think it has the potential. Peacemaking is like wildfire. It can grow so big at a very short space of time. If I was in that situation and I say, you know what? I am going to choose to show kindness to this Israeli who stays 3 blocks down the road from me. I'm not going to treat them with animosity. I'm not going to punish them for something that they know nothing about. As a Palestinian, I am going to treat them with kindness. And the same for the Israeli, to say, I as an individual, I'm going to do this. And if that one person does it and you have someone else doing it, a couple of years ago, we had this thing that almost took, I want to say Canada, but I saw it happening also in the US by storm. These pay it forward. You'd go to buy your cup of coffee and then you pay for the next one.
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yeah. And it was happening almost everywhere. I think kindness and peacemaking is like that. It just spreads.
So I think your feet aren't touching the ground. And here's my point. Yeah. Because my read and my understanding is in Gaza right now, there are people that are kidnapped.
Yeah.
That were actually actively doing peace activities on the border. There is in the media showing a number of faces of people that were peace activists, and they were trying to do exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Either they're dead or they're in a tunnel somewhere waiting to be whatever. So my point is that element was working there, and it didn't catch traction and take off.
Yeah. My argument to that, Greg, would be I can almost guarantee you in those cases, you take away the state, those things don't happen. I think it's the state. The state is a terrible peacemaker. The state, I mean, these are things that are in the media, things that are wherever the state has its hands in something, peace is just not attainable. And I'm willing to be proven wrong, But I think the state is pretty terrible at peacemaking, and when the state has to control the information that you hear, the state controls, what you see, because as you see, you have a way of thinking, no, this is reality,
Yep.
Yeah, I think the state is.
I'll hand you that. All right.
Yeah.
Let's make that assumption that the state it doesn't have a very good track record.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's a lousy track record, and therefore you can say,
super lousy, by the way.
Yeah,
super lousy.
super lousy.
Yeah.
Even though it has a capacity, it's done a lousy job.
Yeah.
The flip side is, and this is what concerns me, the last few minutes that I've been reading this comment, that as a Christian, I've been challenged to be a peacemaker. Blessed are the. It doesn't say I have to be, but it just says blessed are the. So you're going to get a blessing by doing that. So it's a good thing for me that says I'm a Christian to be a peacemaker.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah.
So tell me, how do us, a little band of good people, affect change in this world of conflict?
One act at a time. One act at a time. Hey, blame me for being a prisoner of hope. I am still convinced that there is so much good in humanity that this can happen and things can change. I'm a prisoner of hope. I have so much belief in humanity. I think outside of our systems, because systems have a way of telling us how to think, systems have a way of manipulating and controlling us sometimes. Outside of our systems, when we come to basic humanity, we all bleed red. And so, no, I'm not going to dehumanize the fellow who stays 2 blocks down the road just because someone has told me that they are not worth much. Because when that fellow dies also, there is someone somewhere who's going to be crying and mourning the loss of a loved one. I mean, when we get back to these, let me back it up a bit here. Whenever a story about the other reaches you before you know them in person, be on guard. Be on guard. Because stories have a way of manipulating and making us think in different ways also. And we've spoken about the power of stories here. And I think, no, people can do that. I can choose and say, I am going to be militant in showing kindness and being a peacemaker.
That's actually a powerful point you make. I really think you can build on that one. And let me give you my personal experience.
Yeah.
This comment you made about dehumanizing that person is a powerful one. A number of years ago, I was at a supper event, and it was a barbecue, and all the people in there claimed to have, well, I didn't ask everybody, but I'm assuming by their demeanor and their speech, they subscribe to Christian ethics and beliefs, etc. This one man in particular, we got talking, and he proceeded to, at this time, there's the Iran war that was going on, and the U.S. was about to engage on a military exercise in there, and etc. And he had, if I recall correctly, a couple of his sons that were in the military at that point in time. And he spoke a lot of Christian talk. Mm-hmm. But then it switched when he started talking about the Iranians.
Yeah.
And he started to dehumanize them. And I literally, my jaw dropped open, because a minute ago he had this nice Christian Bible talk.
Yeah.
And then when he talks about the enemy, he had dehumanized them, associated them with animals and a few other things. And now it was very easy for him to justify killing a non-human entity.
Yeah.
Because it's no point, if you take the humanness out of your enemy, out of the bad person, then it's no different than killing a cow or a chicken or something like, yeah, it's sad, but it's, hey, we're going to have a good barbecue tonight. But if you leave that person intact, and says there's a human being, that becomes a lot harder for anybody to kill another human being. But if I dehumanize him,
it's much easier.
It's much easier.
It's much easier, yeah.
And so for me, it was like the lights went on, and I have been looking at articles and some of the verbiage that comes out before wars start, and that tactic is used: dehumanize the enemy.
Yeah.
And once you have convinced your population, your group of people that you want to influence, that the enemy is dehumanized, it's much easier to rally the resources that you want to go to destroy the non-human person or entity.
And with that in mind, Greg, I think it is also important to reverse maybe what goes into peacemaking. So we can see clearly here how the process of peacemaking is so detailed, and when you are an active peacemaker, there is no room in peacemaking for dehumanizing the other. and so the two just don't work well together. I think we should just walk through some of those things.
Yeah, and that's a powerful point, because one of the narratives that what we subscribe to, the Christian narrative, there is a condensation of truth that comes out that says, I cannot make a judgment call on somebody on the other side of the world because he doesn't look like me, he doesn't speak like me, he doesn't dress like me, doesn't have the education like I do, and he does things poorly from my perspective.
Yeah.
They are still made in his image.
Yeah.
And that puts the brakes on me to dehumanize him.
Yeah. And I think when we all stop and come to our senses, we'll realize that person on the other side of the planet that has been dehumanized, like we've said, they bleed red. Where something happens to them, they cry like you do.
Yeah.
They have joy like you do. They have experienced sadness like you do. They mourn their dead. They do all these things that are human.
Yes.
Then how can they not be human? When you're going into a conflict, and now this from that book that we highlighted earlier, Ken argues that in every conflict, there is a desire that has not been met, good or bad. So if I desire something from my spouse and that desire is not addressed, then that's the root, that's the foundation of a conflict.
Expectations haven't been met.
Unmet expectations, exactly. And then after I desire, Ken says, then I demand. Because a desire has not been met, now I demand. You need to do A, B, C, D for me. This has to happen. And you can expand this from individual personal conflicts to conflicts within society, conflicts within countries. There's a desire and then there's a demand. And then when the demand is not addressed, then I judge. So I desire, I demand, then I judge. And the judgment, this is where the dehumanization starts to happen. Oh, they are not even human beings.
Yeah.
How will they act like that? Why do they think like that? What's wrong with? Should we even call them people?
Yeah.
That is when. Just gonna get into trouble again. I think that is when we start using these individuals as the villains in our movies. As the other day, my wife, she's reading a story for our kids. She just goes through the story, and then when she's doing the voice of the villain, she changes her accent, and she caught herself, and she says, "Why did I do that? Why did I do that?"
All villains have accents. You said
all villains have accents. Yeah. So we start to judge. We judge through our movies. We judge. All our crazy jokes seem to refer to the people who are judging. We do all of these things. And like in the court of law, when you judge, what comes next? You punish. So I desire, I demand, I judge, I punish. So I'm going to punish someone for all the things you're a bad person, you're this, and I'm going to come with my guns and I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to, in a marital relationship, I'm not going to have sex with you, I'm not going to, care for the children, I'm going to maybe punish you by withholding affection. That's another punishment. I come home and I say, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" Not going to give you any affection. People just keep punishing and punishing. So now a peacemaker, Greg, I would argue, A peacemaker then will step into that situation and say, honey, I had a desire. And when my desire was not met, I demanded it from you. And that was wrong of me. Because when my demand also was not met, I judged you unkindly. See, this is becoming, peacemaking is becoming it's like me sitting on, on my counselor's couch and saying, hey, I did this. And you are reliving the things that you have done to the person you are in conflict with. And when I judged you, I went on to punish you. And this is how I punished you. And all of this, you were not at fault. I was the problem in this. And that, Greg, I think is just, these are the ingredients that go into peacemaking.
I think it's a brilliant recipe. I'm wondering if our director could put that up there, because those 5 or 4 components are really encapsulates peacemaking. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's actually easy to remember.
Yeah, I desire, I demand, I judge, then I punish.
Yeah.
It just, they always seem to always just follow each other. And therefore, when Christ is saying in that text, blessed are the peacemakers, it is not, it's a very involved system, I think. Because then when I'm making peace, if I am in the conflict, there's a lot of, what's the English? Self-introspection.
Yes.
That has to be done. I think Christ had another thing he said about that, when you see the...
the mote.
In your... You want to remove it in your brother's eye, not realizing that you have the entire branch in yours.
I love your paraphrase.
Translation.
But I think that's what you've hit on here. I think is really an interesting point. Is that we ourselves have to have peace.
Yeah.
And I think a peacemaker has to have peace before he goes out and tries to influence other people in peace. If you're not at peace, if you're angry and you have hate and malice and all these other things, it's a pretty tough job to be a peacemaker.
It is a pretty tough job. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it was saying, blessed are the peacemakers. Because this is not a walk in the park. This is demanding. This is tough.
Yeah.
Because if you're brought in as a mediator, let's say, now you have to deal with the desires on both sides of the conflict, the demands on both sides of the conflict. The judgments on both sides of the conflict, and the punishment that has been issued on both sides of the conflict. And now how you mediate, you have to display so much grace and so much love and so much patience, because you are well aware that you have been in situations yourself where you have done the very same thing. And so now you are treating the whole thing with so much grace in how you do it. No, I think blessed are the peacemakers is...
That's an understatement.
It's a very strong statement. Loving peace is cheap.
Yes, yeah.
Talking peace is cheap. Peacemaking will break you. That's my view of it.
So let me understand what I think you're saying.
Yeah.
Is that in this world where there's conflict, and there's a lot of it, here's what I'm struggling with is that as I read the scriptures from my Christian perspective, it seems like there's a forecast that there's going to be more conflict and more problems in the future than we are here, that we're experiencing now, or possibly. So this idea about being a peacemaker is, again, I get back to this, is it kind of a futile job because it's just going to get worse, possibly, more than likely. So we have that dismal reality that we're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't try.
No.
And I think that's really, really critical. The other aspect that I hear you saying, and I'm going to give you high points on this one, is that all conflicts start probably, and I'm extrapolating what you're saying, probably started off on an individual basis and accelerated into a community problem. Yeah. Accelerated into a regional problem, accelerated into a national problem. Yeah. So if you turn that around, the peace has to start at a personal level, community level. Yeah. And you back it up.
Yeah, Matthew, I think it's Matthew 18 in the Bible. Matthew 18 has this, I've seen theologians call it the Matthew 18 principle, okay? And the principle is as few as possible for as long as possible. So if you and I have a conflict, just a heated conflict.
We could.
God knows we have. I have to come to you directly and say, hey, Greg, man, my goodness, you and I have been friends for a while, man. Come on. Yeah. I realize what I did here, and then I go through all of that, I was wrong. I absolutely regret how I punished you for this, and I did all of this, and hey, there is how I'm proposing that we fix this issue that we find ourselves in. I'm actively in the process of making peace. And let's say then you say, absolutely not, I've had it with you, but it just you get out of, I don't even breathe the same oxygen with you, just get out of here. So what happens after that? The Matthew 18 principle says, I bring in a mediator. So I go to Mr. Director and I say, hey, I need your help, buddy. Greg and I have and then Mr. Director comes and he tries to, resolve this for us. And then, so you limit it to as few as possible for as long as possible. And I think in the many conflicts we're seeing in our community right now, that entire principle is turned upside down. Yes. So if there is something that we have a conflict on, the best thing to do is to
get on social media and tell the whole world.
it becomes a shaming race. Yes. Yeah. Who can shame the other the most? And if I have a TV channel where I can do it, bad luck for you. If all you have is a Facebook page, no, it's supposed to be the other way around. Yeah. As few as possible for as long as possible. And that is peacemaking. That's another element of very productive, constructive peacemaking, because shame should never be our drug of choice.
Shame should never be our drug of choice. Yeah. Powerful point. Yeah. Powerful point.
We should never, just absolutely, that should not even come into the picture. And therefore, we limit it to as few people as possible for as long as possible, because in the efforts of making peace with you, I value your humanity, your reputation.
So I love this. But there's one little problem here. Yeah. Is that I know I'm right. And if we're having a conflict, and I still know I'm right, and I say, you know what? all right, I will go through these 5 points and I will do that. But it's so easy for me to leave town and say, you know what? I've done all those things, but I'm still right.
Yeah.
And that's a very human reaction.
Yeah, yeah, and that's true. People do that, and I'm arguing that when that happens, when you go through that process and you're still convinced that you're right, but you still go through the peacemaking process, I think you're not making peace, you're faking it.
Ah, okay.
And faking peace really does not bring lasting peace. There is no fake it till you make it here. You fake it to your own demise. But then on the other side, I think it's worth talking about also that there is the obligation to the other side of the conflict to practice sincere forgiveness. Where and it's that quality of forgiveness where I will not use this conflict, I will not weaponize it against you. You know, there's that other side of it. But in our religious meta narrative of selective forgiveness, you know, the I forgive you, but you know, the selective, when is it okay for us to be, when is conflict okay, where all these things are, you know.
That's a super important point that you bring up, because you could discover me doing something that is unacceptable, and you know, I can't think of but there's all sorts of scenarios. And you say, okay, Greg, da 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 da, and I say, oh yeah, I did wrong, and so then at that point in time, we come to we go through this whole process, but you know stuff about me.
Yeah.
That you can use on me, and I know that. And from then on, I'm on pins and needles, so to speak, around you, because you can pull that out of your back pocket and said, you folks, you want to know about Greg, let me tell you about him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that is a very human thing to do.
And it will destroy you.
It will.
Yeah, it will destroy you, because that comes from our failure, first of all, to do peacemaking properly. You know, because I think forgiveness, true forgiveness, is a part of peacemaking.
That's a very important word.
Yeah, because you need to. Maybe let's go through this. Let's go through this. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness is not a feeling, even though it can affect
Your feelings.
your feelings. Okay, you're not going to have that warm fuzzy feeling. Oh, I forgave. Just warm fuzzy feeling. You know, forgiveness is not the presence of that warm fuzzy feeling. Forgiving is not forgetting. Okay?
Good point.
Forgetting is a passive action. Okay? Which comes as a result of time. You know, over time you say, okay, you asked me what I ate 4 years ago on this day. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is an active action. It's this choice that I may say, I choose to forgive you today. I choose not to weaponize this offense against you. I choose. It's so active. It's every day, and every time I see you, you know what, I choose to do this because and so in the peacemaking process, true forgiveness does its the peacemaking process, let me go broader, does a greater work on me than it does on the other person who is going to receive this. And forgiveness is not excusing. You're not excusing it.
That's right.
Yeah, you're not saying forgiveness, I think, is actually an acknowledgement that a wrong was done. So I'm acknowledging, I'm saying, Greg, you hurt me. but I'm not weaponizing it. So I'm acknowledging that something wrong was done. And here's a bit of a controversial one. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness. It's not me saying,
I think you'd be argued as a sign of strength.
I think it is a sign of strength, because it is saying that
I'm prepared to step up and say, you're forgiven.
Exactly. Forgiveness does not necessarily entail reconciliation. Because you can forgive someone who abused you, but it doesn't mean you should now go and put yourself in harm's way again.
It's true.
So forgiveness, peacemaking does this great work in the individual, and hence why I think the state is in no position to do it.
It can't do the things that you just outlined here.
Religious institutions struggle with it, but the individual can choose to do it.
What you've just outlined here is a beautiful, exciting concept here, and I think it would be really, really nice to have the confidence to know that my religious community, or a community, but in this case, I'm going to use a religious community, has those qualities. They have my back. They're going to, they have the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And when we looked at a while back, some of the reasons why people exit a religious group, there was two components that forgiveness would be critical in that person's experience. And if they had experienced forgiveness, if they had been able to forgive, they had all those things, that would have changed their emotional outcome. They would have changed their relationships, etc.
Yeah. If there were more peacemakers in that situation,
Yes.
Organized religion would not be leaking as many people.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah. Blessed are the peacemakers. I think it is a call to action. It is a rallying cry. I think we have a great shortage of peacemakers. Peace lovers, we have so many. People who talk peace, there's so many of them. But people who actually take that extra step and say, I am going to be a peacemaker, I think we have fewer and fewer of those, because the religious meta-narrative that we seem to hold on to gives us a cheaper version of peacemaking, which is not peacemaking. I think it's either, it's very peace-breaking ultimately, or peace-faking. But peacemaking is more detailed. But, Greg, you and I can talk for forever about this.
I know, but I want to say I personally appreciate what you've just outlined here, because to have that summary, it is something that I'm sorry, everybody on this planet is going to have their toes stepped on one way or another.
Yes.
We are all going to have an event in our life where we have to initiate those steps that you've just outlined.
Yeah. And I think Ken is onto something when he says conflict is an opportunity to glorify God. Because if we are Christians,
yes,
our calling is to glorify God. And whenever I'm in conflict, that's an opportunity for me, and I'll catch this, to display God-likeness. Godlikeness.
Yeah.
Blessed are the peacemakers. Here we are, conversation, nuance, context.
Yes.
Context, lots of context today. for everyone watching at home, hey, talk to us. What is forgiveness to you? What does it mean to be a peacemaker to you? You know, let's continue this conversation. But also remember to just, hey, go and get the T-shirt. Just go and get the T-shirt. You know, when you do it, you're supporting the work we do, but you're also joining this celebration of context and just nuance and conversation, and just get it online. Get it. We find it never black and white. There's a whole lot of context and conversation, even in the T-shirts. But Greg, until the next time, maybe let's sign out by saying, hey, everyone, please smash the like, subscribe, do all those good things, and
Be a peacemaker.
be a peacemaker.
Yeah.